Welcome, everyone, to the Inspirational Business Women Show. We'll be getting started in just a moment. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Inspirational Business Women Show. I'm Virginia Parsons, your host, and it really is my passion to provide you, the entrepreneur, with a gold mine of inspirational tips, strategies, and advice to help you grow your business from inspirational business women in the know. And we have a brilliant lady here with us today. Her name is Jan Luther, and we're going to be talking about grief and resiliency tools for entrepreneurs. Now, I would love it if you would help spread the word and let other people know about this very important topic at this very challenging time. It is just so important for people to know about it. So I'm going to play the preview trailer so you can get a hint about what's to come in this interview. And while you're watching that, would you please do me a favor and help spread the word? Just click on those buttons you've got there that can help other people know about this wonderful interview coming up in just a moment with Jan Luther. All right. Thank you, everyone, for helping spread the word. I'm so excited that you're here today. And I want to acknowledge you because whether you are live or in replay mode, you're taking the time. You're taking the time to learn something new. You're taking the time to experience information that could be so important to your overall well-being and health. So I want to thank you for that because I know your time is valuable. We'd love to hear from you. So as you hear information that really speaks to you, let us know about it. Also, if you have any questions that come out, let us know about it. We will be sure to get back to you on that. So today's show is sponsored by hangout-marketing.com. And if you want to take a couple minutes to go over there, it will only take you just that. It is an assessment around live stream broadcasting and how you can use live stream to brand, grow, and market your business. Not only that, you might even qualify for a complimentary Shine strategy session with me. So why not take advantage of the whole thing to see where you stand and what you can do differently to step out of your shadow and shine? If you want to go there, all you have to do is text #success to 775-800-4179. Or if you're out of the US, you can go to hangout-marketing.com. Okay, let's get Jan in here. I want to tell you a little bit about Jan and what we're going to be talking about today. Even though you saw the preview, I want to make sure she gets the credit that she deserves. So Jan, she is the founder of her own website, which is janluther.com. That's right. She is an EFT master practitioner. She's one of 9 master practitioners in the United States, which I think is just a really powerful statement for her experience and her expertise. We're going to be talking again about grief and resiliency tools for business owners and entrepreneurs. We all have special needs, and she's going to help us get through and become more resilient today. One of the topics we're going to be discussing is everyday grief symptoms that often go unrecognized. Secondly, we're going to be talking about the hidden cost of not getting support. Sometimes we don't even know that we need support because these grief symptoms could be sort of under the surface. Jan's going to help reveal them to you. Finally, we're going to get a very, very special guidance from Jan on TET tapping for immediate relief from anxiety and pain. And don't we all have a bit of that going on right now? My goodness, the world is in a bit of turmoil, and we need all the support we can get to be balanced and whole as we go through it. And as we become that way, we will support so many more people in what they're all going through. So, Jan, unmute yourself, come on in and say hi to our audience, won't you?
I will. I am so happy to be here. Boy, this could not be more timely, and I'm really honored to be able to step up and be a support, because I know as women, we tend to put ourselves on the bottom of the list, and I'm hoping that this will be an opportunity for your women business owners to go, wait a minute, if I don't take care of me first, what's going to happen for everyone else? So thank you for the opportunity to share my passion and my gifts in this arena.
I'm so thrilled to have you. I know you personally. I know that your brilliance has made a difference in my life already. And so I just can't wait to share you with my audience and get the word out, because these are important tools that you're going to be sharing with us, important processes. And I think so many people aren't aware how much control they have over this if they know how these tools work and can pick them up and use them in their everyday life. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Now, I love for my audience to know a little bit about your background, because all of us as entrepreneurs go through challenges, go through struggles, go through what I call defining moments in their lives. And it's always kind of helpful to realize that other entrepreneurs go through theirs as well, go through their challenges and struggles. And I know that part of what is you've experienced in your life has moved you in the direction that you focus on right now, which is around grief and healing and all the things that can really disrupt our lives on so many levels, both physically and energetically. So would you share with everyone a little bit about your background and defining moments in your life?
I would be happy to. It's so funny to think about how far we come that when we have to pause and go, how did I get here? It can take a second for our minds to really encapsulate all the journey. So I was born in a very small town in Idaho, the sixth of seven children, a lot of alcohol abuse going on in that household, a lot of older siblings picking on me, and being a super, super sensitive child, I felt traumatized regularly. Um, Felt like I wanted to stay invisible. Felt like I wasn't safe in the world. All those things that tend to happen when we can take in the rage and the anger that comes with some of these habits and patterns. And so by the time I was in my early 20s, I had chronic back pains. I suffered from migraines regularly, and at one point was even hospitalized for depression. So in 2000, when I stumbled upon, right, one of those things that we do, I stumbled upon EFT. Um, I was very critical and skeptical that it was going to be of help to my physical things. But I really immersed myself. And within like the very first hour, something just clicked inside of me. It was like this thing of where suddenly my being able to feel people's energy and understand when they were expanding or contracting felt like it made sense, because that was what I was recognizing was my heart had been closed so many times, and my mind had been running these patterns of self-pity and not safe and stuck in the past of all the drama and trauma and grief that I'd had to deal with. But through the course of about 2 years of like almost obsessively working with EFT, it was like shells and scales were just falling off of me physically and emotionally. And I started really tuning in and tapping into my real gifts, which are as a healer and as an intuitive and as someone who can get divine messages for other people sometimes. And so I threw myself in full on, and in around 2004, I think it was, they started having the first EFT masters trainings. So I was fortunate enough to be in the very first group of the trainers, and there were probably 12 or 15 of us at the time, and was able to work with Gary Craig, the creator, and Ann Adams, the founder of the training program. And I was so excited when within 6 or 8 months after that, I had been awarded as one of the EFT master practitioners. And I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to spread this gospel and I wanted to heal people. And one of the things we love about this tool is I put it in your hands. I teach you how to use it. And then you have the power to take care of yourself instead of so many of the modalities that I've been working with before, where you had to always go to the healer or the practitioner to have some kind of service done for you. So here I am with this big vision that I'm going to go out and start teaching the world and work with the other masters and go around the world literally teaching EFT. And an opportunity came up to teach in Denver. It was one of the very first opportunities. And I kept having this resistance, this concern about signing up to be part of that program. And I couldn't figure out why, but I finally just told Anne, I must need to wait for a little while. Well, the day that that program was going on was the day that my son was killed in a single car accident. And so needless to say, I was shattered. It made sense why Spirit had been prompting me not to be part of that program. That would have been horrendous. I can't even imagine what that would have been like. But of course, everything came to a full stop. And even though I worked through so much grief and so much trauma, nothing can prepare you for a loss like that. I'd lost my mother. I lost my father. So many friends. Being a military family, there was a lot of just stress and trauma anyway. But that really took its toll on me. And it was a couple of years before I was willing to even talk about it, which is why I wrote the book. Was I had so many of my practitioners that I trained saying, "Help us. What are you learning from the inside?" Right? I was in the fire trying to throw out some sparks of, well, here's what you're going to experience, and here's how I'm handling it. Maybe it's helpful. And so over time, it started becoming pretty clear to me that this was going to be one of those things that called me to do the work as opposed to my choosing it. And that's kind of what's led me here today. So over the last 8 years, I have been trying little programs and trying to figure out what is needed for the group, and started even a program called the Resiliency Course, which everyone would come and we'd work out a whole bunch of the aspects of the grief, but it just didn't feel deep enough because every single grief and trauma you've had has its own elements, its own aspects and story. And so I started sifting them out a little bit. And well, now we work with someone who's lost a child, or someone who's lost their spouse, or someone who's been through divorce, or a disease diagnosis that can have such an impact. And more recently, what I realized was the first thing that needs to happen is we need to get you out of shock and resistance. Because whenever we're in grief, we're saying no to life. We're saying, I don't feel safe. We're saying, I don't like this experience. And we kind of start getting sidelined. And so I got really, really passionate in the last couple of years about, we got to get back in the game full on. The symptoms of grief being so pervasive and sometimes so hidden, that my first step was, I really have a goal of helping people understand that grief can be an everyday experience. And we need to change the way we think about it, the way we address it. And especially as a nation with all the trauma that our children are going through, and children showing up at school with guns, right? We've got to learn how to deal with our mess so that our children have a better chance of being mentally and emotionally stable going forward.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that, because it sheds a light on not only the resiliency that you have created for yourself by working through it and using these masterful tools, but it also sheds a light, I think, on people and society in general, and the shocks that we have experienced as of late, going through this coronavirus period, and now social and racial upheaval, all of which are things that need to be addressed, all of which are things that are affecting us energetically and emotionally. And yet, what you're saying is, we all do have tools available to us. That's part of what you're going to teach to us today, that can help us find and maintain a place of balance and peace while going through what are pretty tumultuous times. And you certainly went through a major shock, what I would call tumultuous, with the loss of your son, that nobody can plan for, nobody can prepare for. And yet, at the very least, you had some tools that many, many, many people don't know about and don't know what they can do for themselves. So, thank you for just bringing that to our awareness, number one, because it is so needed. And I think it's a perfect time for this interview to be taking place because, as you say, grief is almost an everyday experience on some level, that it's one of the powerful emotions that we have to deal with. And we certainly don't want to deal with it in a way that is negatively impacting a whole lot of other people along the way. So thank you, Jan, for being here and sharing your grief and what you learned from it and how you've grown from it and the importance of finding resiliency. And that's why the topic today is grief and resiliency tools. Now, the tool that you're going to share with us, many people know of it as EFT and tapping, emotional freedom technique. But you have really honed in on how to use it in this specific way. And so for that, I'm just really pleased. So let's get started with the first topic, which is everyday grief symptoms, because I think sometimes we're not even aware that we have these symptoms going on. And so how they're unrecognized and how you can start recognizing them. So go ahead with that.
Absolutely. I have so many, and I've played with this a lot because we kind of are bootstrap people, right? We just keep on keeping on, especially as women, right? We're spinning these plates, and then this stuff shows up, and we just add it to the mix, and we don't actually stop. We often don't stop frequently enough to recognize how thinly we're spreading ourselves and how much trauma and grief we're carrying. So when I'm working with a client, one of the things that I'm looking for is if they have physical pain that's pervasive and they've been to seek medical attention and they can't find the root of it, every time we can trace it back to an experience they've had that was traumatic or grief causing, and how that energy just got stuck and literally locked into the body. And it keeps manifesting and amplifying if it's not treated. Another one that women don't realize is if I'm feeling really antisocial and protective of my heart, someone has closed my heart. Someone has said or done something that gave me grief. It could have been a thoughtless word, especially those of us who are sensitive. It could have been a tone that just triggered us. And so triggers are something we're always looking for, is when X happens, here's my response or reaction to it. When did I learn that? So that would be the first thing I'd have you ask yourself is are you willing to take a step back and go, here's a pattern that's running. It's not helpful. It's not productive. I wonder if I could take a step back and observe what triggers that. And then ask myself, when did I learn that? How did that begin? Another one, especially in the pain, is the broken heart syndrome. I've had it. I literally thought I was having heart attacks or that my heart was going to break, and sought out medical attention. And of course, nothing was wrong, and spent a whole lot of money and a whole lot of time being a little bit condescended to. By the way, I actually wrote about it in my book that the doctor was just annoyed with me, saying that you're just being lazy and you need to get more exercise. And I'm like, I can hardly get out of bed. Don't tell me to go jog. That's not going to happen. So pay attention to your physical pain and your emotional resistance to things that normally would be enjoyable or that you'd be passionate about. And I always think of that as my spirit being closed and this emotional wall going up, because the cost of having that wall stay up is the separation that starts happening between you and your loved ones, and you and your passions, and you and your purpose, right? For many of us, we know this is why I'm on this earth. I am here to help with X, Y, or Z, whatever it is. And especially if you are a service oriented business like myself, and even Virginia, where so much of what she does is based on her being there to help you. You are the business. And if you're limping and if you're wounded, it's going to take so much more energy to get things done than it would if you were feeling full and whole and wholesome and whole and balanced, is maybe the best way to say it. So so many symptoms that we just disregard and don't think of as there's something giving me grief and I need to address that.
And as a result, what you're talking about is that there's physical symptoms. We all sometimes don't even have a clue that there's an underlying issue that is not physiological, right? And that's
Mm.
what you were experiencing around this feelings of pain, and then the emotional resistance. In this case, the heart, what'd you call it? Broken heart. I was going to say heartbreak. Same thing. That created physical symptoms, but the underlying issue was not a physiological one. And so often that's the first thing we think of. When we have physical symptoms, we think there's something physically wrong with me. I need to go to the doctor. We would never suggest you don't go to the doctor. Of course, that is an important thing to consider in any kind of symptom that you're carrying. So what you're really getting at is symptoms come in many different ways. They are masked in many different ways because the underlying issue may or may not be physiological. It truly may be some form of grief, some form of trauma, some form of emotion that gets, as you call, triggered by something that happened earlier. I know all about triggers, having been a clinical hypnotherapist for many years, but they all create these energetic shifts that we notice that make us so out of balance. And I love that you said, Jan, that as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, it's really important that we get a handle on these things, that we identify that they're there, first of all, and then get a handle on how we can make a transition or a transformation around them so that we can be our best in our own work and in delivering our own gifts as a business man or a businesswoman. So thank you. I think that's the first step, isn't it? Is identifying what those actually are. Anything else you want to add to that before we go into the hidden cost of not getting support?
Absolutely. I think that's why I am such a fan of this, of tapping in and of itself, is it treats the whole being, right? If I just sit and talk about my problem, I often, a client will get what I call the dwell and swell syndrome, is the more I talk about it, the angrier I get, the more victimized I feel, the more powerless, the more hopeless. But if we just speak about it, our brain just keeps adding juicy tidbits and reasons why we're upset. And if we only treat the physical and we just heal the energy, the brain still is going to be bringing up stories and bringing up problems. So I think the reason I'm so thrilled and excited to be able to offer these tools of tapping with the cognitive shifting is it's going to handle all of that. And you're going to do it in a very graceful, very loving, very gentle, and honest way, right? As you name the feeling and you name the story you're telling about it, and we just slowly, slowly start taking the distress levels out of that story. And then the energy doesn't get stuck in your body, which is what creates, right, as we're tapping on meridians. And so if that energy is stuck in your body, it's because that energy is not flowing. And that's when disease starts happening. That's when the pain starts becoming something that is a physical problem. So yes, always, always go seek medical advice on all those things. But just be aware that if you go and they have no answer for you, there's other things that you can do.
Wow, you just made such an important point also about the brain and that nonstop chatter that sort of evolves around the situation and how that amplifies what's going on for you. And so I think this is one of those what I call pack your bag moments for our viewers. If you guys are getting some what I call gem ideas and understandings from Jan, put them down. We want to hear about them. That's a gem for me to remind ourselves that yes, if we just let that emotional chatter take over around a circumstance that's challenging or trying, all we're doing is amplifying it. And instead, Jan is going to share some strategies and techniques and the tools around EFT tapping that can totally help dissolve that and move you to a whole different place energetically. So, whoa. All right. So, the hidden cost of not getting support. Let's talk about that, Jan.
Yes. Oh my. So think about it as the business owner who's already wearing how many hats? and you've got a family perhaps, or you've got other responsibilities, and now you have some kind of shock or trauma that takes its toll on your energy and your focus and your enthusiasm. And especially in the beginning, where it's so much, the shock just literally puts your brain offline. Trying to move forward without getting some kind of support is going to delay not only your progress, but it's going to delay your healing. And speaking of the mind, one of my major concerns about not treating the shock and trauma early is our brains literally rewire based on the stories we're telling ourselves over and over. So in my program, I talk about the ego, which is what I call that little mind, that voice in the head. And that voice, if it comes to what I call a verdict, which is really just an opinion about what's happened to me, I become the victim of the verdict now. In that if I make a statement, some of the worst that I've heard have been from parents who've lost children. And one woman told me to my face very adamantly that she deserves to suffer for the rest of her life because her child has died and they don't get to live.
Oh no. So this is just a prime example of what you're talking about. It's like the brain is rewired energetically, and now she's living from a distorted belief system that is affecting her entire life going forward. That is so sad, but that is one of the costs that you're talking about, right?
That is absolutely one of the costs is recognizing, and for most of us, we aren't even aware that our brain is doing that. And in the program, I teach a whole module just on recognizing what a verdict is and how to erase it. Because until we're able to recognize that that's just my opinion that I've thought so many times that it's become my rule, we are literally at its mercy. I have two stories that I want to share really quickly. So one of them is Dr. Andrea, who this happened several years ago. She'd been a client of mine for a long time, and we've been working back and forth. And one day I just had this feeling that I just needed to call her. You know, those little prompts that you get sometimes. Listen to those, by the way. Never have I had it be a bad situation, you know, work out badly. And I went, gee, I wish I hadn't wasted that call. But this particular time, I was, as soon as she got on the phone and I'm asking her how's it going and what's happening, I could feel her energy was so depressed, and I could feel the anxiety. And again, as an empath, that's part of the work. The beauty that I can bring to the work is I can actually sense what's happening often before the client is even aware it's going on. And she proceeds to tell me the story of how later in the week, she has a meeting with someone who's interested in buying out her practice. And, you know, I'm never one to project and say, well, are you sure you want to do that? But my heart was going, are you sure you want to do that? So I just very gently asked her some questions about, you know, how did you get here and what's happening? And I'm honestly kind of surprised that you're even considering that, because I know you're so good at what you do, and you have so much love and whatever to give. Totally support whatever you choose. But if there's something that I could help you with, let's talk through that. Well, come to find out, she'd had a major trauma and grief that she didn't even realize was sucking her energy, interfering with her daily work, causing her to not want to go to work. And it's like this falling down the stairs experience energetically, until she finally came to this place where she said, I'm just giving up. Oh, my heart. So I asked her to reconsider. We did a little bit of a session. The call was 38 minutes. I remember that specifically because we went from literally her being devastated, hopeless, going to give it up, asked her about a dozen questions, got her in touch with her why she was doing it in the first place, helped her remember what it's like to have success, and promised her that we would work on the grief. She called the people that afternoon and said, never mind. And within about 6 weeks, when I checked back with her, she was so grateful. And she told me, girl, I've had the best financial month of my entire business, and I almost threw it all away.
So, what a story. We got to break in there, and then I want to hear the second one. Stories, you guys, are so important because they bring life to someone's experience in a way that you can't understand what Jan's talking about until she can put it in the context of the transformations that can happen as a result of getting a handle on this, getting a handle on beliefs that are keeping you stuck or pulling you in the wrong direction and interfering with your, not only your sense of well-being, but in this case, her whole profitability for her business. That's why this is such an important topic for all of you to pay attention to, because I know that we all struggle with our own inner demons, situations, belief systems that hold us back and interfere with all that we really can create in our businesses. So, Jan, number one, thank you for that story. Let's hear one more. They're too powerful not to.
Thank you. Yeah, the second one actually happened yesterday. So it's really fresh on my mind that my client Sue had lost a daughter 20 years ago, I think it was. And she finally found me, and we're making amazing leaps and bounds, her words, progress in her grief after everything she's tried, the books she's read, the therapy she's been to. She said that having this process where I know what aspects to look for and in what order, we really went deep dive into the day she got the news about her daughter. And as often happens, she could only remember snippets. But when she said one phrase, my whole body lit up with, holy cow, there's something there we need to work on. The phrase that she got was her daughter said, Mom, are you sitting down? And of course, Mom goes, oh, we know that's not good news. And her daughter proceeded to tell her that what they thought was pneumonia was lung cancer. So we're tapping along and we're healing the trauma of that day and getting that news and what she was seeing and what she was feeling. And the numbers are just shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And suddenly she just can't sit comfortably in her chair. She's got to change her chair. She gets a pillow. She gets some water. It was like her ego had her so distracted because we were getting close to something really important, is always my spiritual theory, that she was having a hard time even just sitting with me. And so I just very patiently waited and just kept tapping with her. And then I had this insight. And I asked her, how long has it been since you've been able to sit comfortably without any pain? And the tears just rolled. She said, I don't remember the last time. And I said, is it possible that it was the day that your daughter called and asked if you were sitting down? And her brain had connected guilt with being sitting down without pain as feeling like guilt that her daughter had died, because of that weird way that her mind had connected, are you sitting down? And it was the worst news of her life. And she's been perpetuating this pain every day since then for 20 years. So needless to say, we got a little more work to do on that, but the power of the mind to misrepresent itself and connect things that don't connect, we have to make sure that we're including mindset in the process, which that's one of my favorite things to do, is help people really find the root of the belief that's keeping them in the pattern that's hurting.
Yeah, and we're talking 20 years here that she had subconsciously made a decision to stay in pain because of that connection she made at the time of her daughter's death. I'm understanding that that's how she learned about it. Can I be clear on that? Okay.
Yes, it was the day that her daughter gave her the news, and that led to her
death. Okay, so so she connected the news of that and therefore her loss. Wow. Okay, so are you guys getting this? It's so important that you realize that that's a very important, significant story that Jan's sharing with us. But I know that we all also deal with grief and shock and trauma on what I would call smaller levels. And they're still important. It's important that we recognize them and do the work on them so that we can move into a better state of mind and being, so that we can be of better assistance to all the people that we work with. So you see how doing this work amplifies and projects out in multiple ways to the benefit of everyone. And when we don't do the work, when we don't address these issues, we're actually not giving as much as we could, and we're not helping as much as we could those people whose lives we impact. So there is that ripple effect. And so, Jan, again, I think this is just such powerful information. right now during this time of upheaval and challenge in our country, but it's also something that we've got to deal with in a day-to-day time frame, because this comes up in our life all the time in multiple ways. Now, I know that you're going to show us the TET tapping. I want to know what that's about, first of all. I don't even know what TET means, so you got to share us with that. But I also want you to talk for a moment about how this is impacting people every day in smaller ways. It's not just the big trauma, the big experience that we all have life in our lifetimes, but it's the smaller things too. Can you give us some examples of what those might be or look like?
Absolutely. When people ask me what grief is, I often will tell them that it is an everyday experience, because anytime you have a disappointment or an unexpected outcome, you're going to have to go through the grieving process. It might be something as small as, well, this isn't small, but I always think of it of a child when you're trying to wean them off of their pacifier in their blanket, right? The first response is, no, I want it the other way. There's lots of tears, there's lots of sleeplessness, and depending on the resiliency of the child, how quickly they adapt and learn to soothe and comfort themselves. For us right now, one of the major pieces of grief that I'm treating a lot of people for is what I call surrogate suffering. And that is observing other people who are losing loved ones, other people whose marriages are crumbling, other people who are financially strapped, and I can't do anything about that. It sounds like a small thing, but we literally, because we have mirror neurons in our brain, we literally feel the pain, some of us more than others, for those people. And that can sideline us, because now we're trying to process a grief that we're powerless over, literally. I can't heal them. I can't give them the money they need. I can't take away that woman's sorrow who just lost her child. And so one of the things we want to be aware of is how we're taking in the news, how we're taking in the recent riots. How is that affecting us? Because we're surrogate suffering with and on behalf of others as well. But it could be anything like, if you've put a lot of time and energy into a program and it flopped, right? Is this almost like that was a, we often talk about, it's like, this was my baby, right? As I worked and I sweated and I put all this time and energy and it didn't work. I've had it when I've worked with a coach that I had such high hopes. And every time I worked with that coach, I was a little less comfortable and it was just not in a good alignment. I had to grieve the investment, the time, the disappointment. So it's always this process of going from extreme rejection and resistance to a place where I'm starting to learn to adapt and eventually accept. And to me, that's the line of resilience, is when I've come to a place where I've accepted it and I'm putting it behind me and I'm moving forward. To me, that's the ultimate sign of resilience is, I'm not 6 years old waiting for my pacifier anymore. That's a sign of resilience. That baby has learned that there are other ways to soothe and there are other ways to calm besides what the original soothing tool was, whether it was a blanket or a pacifier. And for us, it's like every day, a neighbor that's hostile, driving, hello, road rage can set you into a place of grief. As I thought I was safe, people on the road. And again, if that ego starts going, we start writing these stories that now set us up to be more easily triggered in the future, instead of going, another question for you. I wonder why that was their response. I wonder what they're in such a hurry for, right? Is there's always about taking a step back and trying to see it from a different viewpoint. Have I ever done that myself? That's a question I had to learn to ask myself in the beginning. Have I ever been in a hurry and cut in front of someone, or, right, whatever the situation is to be able to step out of it a little bit and become the observer, so that we can get a little more in tune with our intuition and move more swiftly into the resilient place, which is what we all want. We want to be strong. We want to feel confident. We want to have that impact of being the leader who, we're not going to have it all together and we're not going to be fearless, but it's what we do with it that really matters.
Oh, such good stuff, Jan. Are you guys putting down lots of gems? I want to hear about those gems that you're pulling from Jan's wisdom and experience. And I like that you brought up surrogate suffering, because we don't often realize to the degree that impacts us, and yet it impacts us every day. And I think that one of the ways you can protect yourself from that is not spend too much time watching the news. But yeah, surrogate suffering is definitely real. But also, thank you for really helping define what resilience is and how we can start to move to a place of resilience on a more consistent basis so that we can find alignment and inner balance. So let's get on to the technique of TET tapping for what you call immediate relief from pain and anxiety. I want to experience this, so go for it.
I would love to. So TET tapping is my own version of tapping. It's much more spiritual, and it's much more based on the concept of my ego is going to write stories, and I must learn to edit them before they become written in stone. So with TET tapping, what I'm doing is we're using the same basic techniques as any tapping, but it's the formula that's different. And the difference is in regular tapping, we're tapping on certain meridians, which I'll take you through all of them in a moment, but we're tapping on certain meridians, which sends energy moving through the body. And Harvard's study proved that what actually happens is it turns off the fight and flight in the amygdala. Is that just by stimulating these meridians, tapping on them or using needles, it's calming down that old part of our brain that wants to always be ready to fight or to flee or to freeze. And as we start to do that, we come out of our protected, archaic monkey mind and back into our logical reasoning mind, where we can now make a new decision. We can now rewrite that rule. We can now practice a better thought that rewires the brain and all those neural pathways to start recognizing, for example, yes, that was a horrible accident. And if I'm in shock and trauma about that accident, you can't convince me that I'm safe in my car. But by bringing down the trauma and taking out the fight, flight, and freeze, we can now look at it logically and say, so how many times have you driven without an accident? Oh, 10,000, but there was one accident which you walked away from, and then the brain can handle it. Then the brain can anchor that and accept it as truth and reality, because we've put you back in the space where your mind is working from a cognitive level instead of a reaction mode. So I want to just take you through the tapping points. The first one is the side of the hand, and we're literally just tapping along the fleshy side of the hand 5 to 7 times. I say that, but as the ego tamer tapping is very intuitive, and my practitioners have learned that we start with your basic phrases and then we let intuition come through. And sometimes, for example, so how long has it been since you've been able to sit comfortably, lady? Right? Did it go clear back to the day that your daughter said, are you sitting down? Right? That was an intuitive hit that would have been completely missed if I'd have been just doing mechanical tapping. So the first point is the tapping on the side of your hand. We do that and we speak certain words, which I'm going to ask for some words from you, Virginia, in a minute, and we'll use those. The second point is the top of the head or crown point. And again, I know this looks so foolish, and if you've never seen this, I get it. When I first tried it, I was going, you want me to do what? What is this going to do? but I felt the immediate relief, and I'm like, I'm smart enough to know if it feels better, I'm going to keep doing that. It can't cause harm. The next one is between the eyes. And I literally just kind of put my finger between my eyebrows and tap on both ends. Then the side of the eyes, and you can use one hand. I like the balance of using two. Under the eyes, and I always try to remember to tell you the point as we're doing it. And we'll speak words, as I said. You'll repeat after me the words that I'm using. Under the nose. Under the lip, we actually call it the chin point, but it's actually like right under that lip where the little dent is. Then we have collarbones, and I do like to use both hands, and I like to spread my fingers wide, because if there's one meridian here, there's 5, 6, 7, 8. We're getting them all. And just so you understand, the reason this works is because every meridian connects to an organ, and every organ manages an emotion. So without having to know, is this the grief point? Is this my stomach point? we just do the whole overhaul every time we're tapping, and we get all the meridians, and we kind of toothpaste squeeze the energy through your body by doing that. Then under the arm for women, it's real easy. You literally just tap on the bra strap where it's wrapping around. And then the bottom of the ribs. And a couple of these, yes, I'm adding if you are a big fan of EFT or regular tapping. Some of these we don't use, but in the ego chamber tapping we do, because my process is about grief. And by putting your thumbs up under the breasts, like even with the nipples, and then rolling your fingers down and tapping all along the rib cage, you're hitting lung, which is grief, spleen, liver, right, anger, all these organs that you don't even have to think about what they are, because you're just doing this overhaul tapping. So those are the points. The second thing that's important, and this is really important, is we have what we call the distress scale. And it's actually SUDS, the subjective units of distress scale. And it's simply the scale of 0 to 10. 10 being when I think about that issue, or when I bring that story into my consciousness, how distressed do I start feeling? For some of us, we might be more visual and we need to actually picture it on a thermometer, where 10 is red and it's all red, and it starts shrinking as we start making some movement in the energy. But most of us can kind of intuitively guess that on a scale of 0 to 10, the first number that comes to your mind is probably right. So what I'd like to do, Virginia, is maybe let you be my little guinea pig for a second.
Sure.
And you have some phrases, and it can be any kind of phrase about the stuff that's been happening in our world or in your own life, about the anxiety and the trauma, especially around the COVID and everything that's happening now. We don't even have to have the story. We want to work our way gently in and start having some relief. So any thoughts, top of mind, I always say top of mind concerns or frustrations that you know are giving you distress?
Well, right now, the top of mind concerns really has to do with the racial upheaval in our country. I spent most of yesterday contemplating this and how I might be of service in this area. Being a white businesswoman, how can I help support those who are less fortunate than I have been in my life? And especially because it's really important to me to support business owners, entrepreneurs who are trying to grow their business. So I don't know if it's been a lot of energy that I felt has sucked me down. It's been a very deep contemplative place for me. And I would love some guidance on how to work through that.
How to work through that. So what I would be looking for, and baby girl, I'm right there with you. And for those of you who don't know, I have an interracial grandchild who I adore. She's my angel, my heart. And so it gets really personal for me when I start thinking, okay, not only do I have compassion for my practitioners who are dealing with this on both sides. They're white, they're black, some have poverty issues, some right is I have across the board. All of these people that I care deeply about, and I want to be supportive of them. So the first word that came to my mind as you were speaking is afraid to speak up because I'll get attacked. Because I'll say it wrong. I promise you.
Yeah.
Is it African American? Please don't be angry with me. Do you want to be called black? Please don't be angry with me.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that I'm with you? That was injustice, and it should never happen to a dog, let alone a person, right? Yeah. So the anger and the fear are the first two things that came up for me as you were speaking intuitively. So let's just try anger on a scale of 0 to 10. When you think about the anger at what's happening, how high does that go on a scale of 0 to 10?
Well, I don't think the anger is really that high, believe it or not. I think I'm pretty good at not dwelling there. So I might put it at a 5 around the injustice, even though it's huge injustice. I'm just energetically, I don't feel that welling up that strongly. I don't know if I'm kidding myself or not. I'm just trying to be totally open and honest with you.
I'm so glad you are. And that's the other thing that's really important, because we want your measurement right here in this moment. Otherwise we could be, well, yeah, back when I saw that, right? That's not helpful. It's what's being carried around in your body right now, which, by the way, if it's a 3 or higher, it's causing you distress.
Okay.
It's messing with your subconscious.
Because it feels more like it's uncertainty, Jan, than it is anger. It feels more uncertainty of how I can really be of the best support, how I can help unite rather than to divide. So I feel it's more about grief and sadness about the division that's going on. Yeah, the anger is about the situation that has triggered this, but there's just so much more under the surface that's more about grief and sadness about the division.
Perfect. So I want you to think in terms of grief, that this isn't fair, this shouldn't be happening, right? As grief is usually
Yeah.
this resistance to, it's a form of saying no, just no. On a scale of 0 to 10, how high?
Yeah, well, that wells up in me
So let's put
almost
number
to
one.
tears right now just thinking about it. And I'd say it's a 7.
So, and everyone will decide what a 10 is for you. I'll use the 10 when I'm really upset and tears are coming, but when I'm really at a 10, I can't even talk.
Mm,
Right? It's like I'm such a,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
we always joke with my practitioners that it's the dog whistle tone. Right?
yeah.
Can't make sense of it. So whatever that number is for you. Then the sadness. That's a different energy on a scale of 0 to 10. How high is the sadness?
Well, I would put that around the same place, around a 7.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you and talk you through this. And everyone who's listening and watching, you do this too. You find 2 or 3 of these, and this is how you're going to get to experience some instant relief. Make sure it's not a 200, right? Make sure it's one that is, that it's just the frustration is what we're going to work on right here, and the sadness that it has to be this way. So as an intuitive, I pick your words and then I start adding words as I'm inspired. And I just have been so prayerful that I would pick words that would absolutely be soothing to everyone listening. So we're going to go very, what I call global. I'm not going to get too specific about
Hmm.
which side or which theory or whatever, as a human.
Yeah.
So, and then you're just going to repeat the words after me as we're tapping. Even though
Even though
this makes me so sad,
this makes me so sad,
and it does feel hopeless.
and it does feel hopeless,
And a part of me just keeps asking, what can I do?
and a part of me keeps asking, what can I do?
And it's possible that I just feel like such a small person in this big problem.
And it's possible that I feel like such a small person in this big problem.
Is that close? Is there some element of that? It's
Oh,
just a
yeah.
little, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're on it.
I deeply and completely
I deeply and completely
love and honor my heart,
love and honor my heart,
which has so much empathy and compassion for everyone's pain.
which has so much empathy and compassion for everyone's feelings.
Take a nice deep breath. We're going to do 2 more of those. They're called setup rounds, where we stay right here. And this is just kind of getting the brain to release that resistant place, even though this is just so stinking sad.
Even though this is just so stinking sad.
And maybe I keep thinking, how did we get here?
And maybe I keep thinking, how did we get here?
Isn't it time for us to be over this nonsense?
Isn't it time for us to be over this nonsense?
People are people.
People are people.
And I want to love all my people.
And I want to love all my people.
And it's so hard to watch some people not feeling loved.
And it's so hard to watch some people not feeling loved.
Take a nice deep breath. And again, are we close? And are any of those phrases landing?
You're tuned in,
Yep.
tapped in.
So, and we'll do one more setup. Even though I would probably be more concerned about me if I wasn't sad and grieving.
I would probably be more concerned about me if I wasn't sad and grieving.
Those are the people we need to be concerned about.
Those are the people we need to be concerned about.
The people who have wounds that go so deep.
The people that have wounds that go so deep.
That their heart has become hardened.
That their heart has become hardened.
So, and I always use God, universe, whatever language works for each of you. So I invite my source energy, God, universe.
So I invite my source energy
to let the love and compassion that I'm feeling.
To let the love and compassion that I'm feeling.
First open my heart.
First open my heart.
And then send out this energy of love and peace.
And to send out this energy of love and peace.
Top of the head. Energy is energy.
Energy is energy.
Between the eyes. We can feel other people's moods when we cross their path.
We can feel other people's moods when we cross their path.
Side of the eyes. Maybe I can become a deliberate love person.
Maybe I can become a deliberate love person.
Under the eyes. I'm sending this love out to all those who are hurting so deeply.
I'm sending this love out to all those who are hurting so deeply.
Under the nose. I have compassion because I don't understand why they're there.
I have compassion because I don't understand why they're there.
Under your chin. I don't know what trauma has triggered their hatefulness.
I don't know what trauma has triggered their hatefulness.
Let's take a deep breath right there. That feels important for everyone who's doing this. Collarbone. And I want to ask.
And I want to act.
As if I am the love that is the solution.
As if I am the love that is the solution.
Under the arm, because I cannot face each person who's hurting.
Because I cannot face each person who is hurting.
My path won't probably cross theirs, right?
My path won't probably cross theirs, right?
Bottom of the ribs, but my energy can go to the galaxies.
But my energy can go to the galaxies.
Yep, take a deep breath, top of the head. And I know I'm kind of jumping right into the spiritual part, but I feel like a lot of your business owners, a lot of these entrepreneur women understand that we have to have it rooted in more than just the logical. So we're going to just do a couple more rounds here of anchoring this, releasing the shock and sadness.
Releasing the shock and sadness.
Between the eyes, acknowledging that I do need to be gentle with my own energy.
Acknowledging that I do need to be gentle with my own energy.
Side of the eyes, watching more news is not going to help me solve the problem.
Watching more news is not going to help me solve the problem.
Under the eyes, I want to love deeply wherever I am.
I want to love deeply wherever I am.
Under the nose, my being kind and empathetic.
My being kind and empathetic
matters.
Matters.
Under your chin, it does begin with the individual.
It does begin with the individual.
Collarbone, I want to envision a future.
I want to envision a future.
Where this is like fairy tales.
Where this is like fairy tales.
Under the arm, where my great-grandchildren go, they did what?
Where my great-grandchildren go and say, what?
Bottom of the ribs, where they find it unbelievable.
Where they find it unbelievable.
Because we live in a world.
Because we live in a world.
Top of the head, that we have created.
That we have created.
Between the eyes, that's based in kindness.
That's based in kindness.
Under the eyes, respect.
Respect.
Under the eyes, empathy.
Empathy.
Under the nose, and service.
And service.
You take a deep breath. Come to your chin, releasing more layers of grief and sadness.
Releasing more layers of grief and sadness.
Collarbone, open to the idea that it'll take a minute.
Open to the idea that it will take a minute.
Under the arm, and honoring that I get to decide.
And honoring that I get to decide.
How I'm going to show up.
How I'm going to show up.
Bottom of the ribs, minute by minute.
Minute by minute.
So let's take a little breath. And just relax your hands. Sometimes I'll ask if there's any awareness in your physical body, anything that you noticed happening as we were doing that.
Oh, wow. My energy has expanded exponentially. There is a tingling. There is a feeling of movement. Not feeling stuck. I like the movement, the expansion, the rising of, I don't know how else to put it, but the rising of the energy, the belief, the feeling of a new belief setting in that's not so sad and disappointed, but instead optimistic. And the idea that a little old me can make a difference. Wow.
All right. So now let's circle back, and I want to retest those numbers. When you think
Okay.
about the grief, about what's happening, on a scale of 0 to 10, what number would you put on just the grief?
It's pretty dissolved, Jan. Maybe a 2. I don't know if it's even there. It's not, I'm not seeing it or feeling it that way right now.
And then, and then the sadness that we're going through this on a scale of 0 to 10.
That has come down. There's still some there. There's still some residual there, but it feels like it's transformed. It's more, again, about the sadness is now expanding into a place of possibility. How about that?
Right? And that was
Because the tears that I'm feeling welling up now are different kind of tears.
there's a joy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And my love, this is what I'm trying to do with these programs is if we could do this regularly and keep ourselves centered, right? Is it's not all going to be, Pollyanna and fairy tales, and it's not all going to be awful, but this hopeful middle place where my energy starts tuning into that source.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I start being, that's when my intuition works. That's when I'm in the flow and things just start working, right? Stuff that I can't manage and make happen in a million years. When I'm in that centered and calm, that peaceful harmony place, that's when some real miracles can start happening. And people feel that, right?
Yeah.
We walk through an area and people can feel it.
Yeah. And I think that's just so important because we're talking about what's the word that comes to me? Exude.
Yeah, it is.
What
We
is
radiate
exuded
energy.
from our being
Yeah.
definitely impacts other people. So it has to start with us. It has to start with us, each one of us. And that's why I was saying earlier on when we were talking about the impact of not getting help is that you're limiting what you can do in a positive level for so many other people, and negatively you're impacting people negatively. So it's got to start with us. And thank you so much for helping me with this, because I've really, really been contemplating and praying about this. And who am I to think I can make a difference? I know now I can make a difference. And so can all of you. Wow. Thank you, Jan. Thank you. I'm just praying all of you, please. I want to see your gems in going through this, because I think what we just went through is applicable to so many of you. Doesn't matter what color your skin is. This is applicable to every one of us in some way. So boy, we went longer than normal today, but don't you think it was worth it? Jan, please share with everyone what you have for them. You have some things coming up, plus you have a great gift. Would you go ahead and talk about that?
Well, let me talk about the gift first. I'm going to just confess here that I started with this really beautiful little 10-page, here's some affirmations and here's a little bit of how you tap. And over the last 2 weeks, the heaviness on my heart, it just didn't feel sincere enough. It didn't feel like it would be helpful enough. So I'm actually in the process, and we'll have it up on your page ASAP. It's actually what I call the grief inventory and stress assessment. Because until we see how much trauma we're carrying around unconsciously, right? That was one of the first things we needed to address, is realize this is grief. This is trauma. This is shock. Until we get our head around that, we can't really do the deeper work that needs to be done, and we can't deal with even the shock. So that little packet is going to quickly become one of my favorite little free gifts for people, thanks to having this opportunity to work with Virginia. And in that package, it actually is going to walk you through calculating how many traumas are in your system, how many things you've experienced, and how many distresses are above a 3. Because as I mentioned to her, if it's above a 3, it is impacting your subconscious behaviors. It is making your spirit closed. It is making you be more easily triggered, impatient, intolerant, want to give up. Please don't do the Dr. Andrea. Don't get to that place first. So that package also has a few little tapping things with it, which will be great fun. And then the program that I want to share with you.
Pause just a moment and let's give them the link for this, because they all want to get this gift. I know they want this gift. Okay, it's the Grief Inventory and Stress Assessment. To get this, all you need to do is go to hmtips.com/Jan Gift. It's that easy. hmtips.com/Jan Gift to pick up her Grief Inventory and Stress assessment so that you can start transforming your own life with this wonderful assessment tool. If it's over a 3, you're dealing with it. Okay, go ahead now. What else have you got coming up?
Um, First of all, I want to thank everyone for hanging in here the extra time. I know that your time is so precious, and I always get a little anxious because I know you have appointments and you have things to do. But I promise you, if you hang in here, you're going to be able to know in a minute whether or not this program is for you. One of the first things I want to kind of help us understand is, as we saw with the examples that I used, I can't get my own mind out of its way. Sometimes I need someone to help me. And so what literally happened is, this was early or late last year, early this year, I started thinking, if I were to meet with someone, especially a woman, because that's my core ideal client, to meet with a woman who's stuck in their business, who's stuck in their relationships, who's just kind of stuck and sidelined in their life, what would be the things that I would want them to learn and experience over a day, or to break it down into 5 hours? What would they need to go through to have measurable relief, to have incremental opening of heart and spirit? So I created a program called Healing Your Grief, Picking Up the Pieces, and you'll have access to the information on that same page where you go for your freebie. But I sat down and I went, what are the 5 reasons we don't seek help and support when we're stuck, when we're grieving? The first one, of course, is time and energy. I know you're busy. I know you have appointments. I know you probably have children or family or volunteer things that you're doing. So the idea of being able to create an online program where you're basically just doing what you're doing right here with me, but it's very pointed each step of the way, and it's available to you 24/7, right? You don't have to make an appointment with me. You don't have to work around the group appointment. Literally having this program on your computer, on your phone, you can use it whenever you want. The other thing is privacy, right? I'm going to be the first one to tell you that when I was feeling so raw, and even with the conversations we had today, that could get really intimate really quickly when we start talking about our fears and the traumas we've all had. And so privacy was really important. And having an online program, you're doing it from your home, you're doing it in your car on your phone, as long as the car's not running. Remember, I said that. And you're able to access it without worrying about people judging you, without worrying about hurting other people's feelings, because those of us who are sensitive are always hyper aware of not causing pain with our pain. But the other part of that is recognizing that with this privacy also comes this ability to really speak your mind. If you're ticked off, we use adult language, fair warning, because if it calls for it, we want you to speak what's really in your head, not what we should be saying. Is we really want you to have the ability to not only not take on other people's stuff, but to be able to do it from your own home, where you can literally let it all hang out, shall we say. The other one was the fear of digging into the yuck of the memories, right? We're all afraid of the feelings that might come up. This program doesn't go there. Much like we did today, we're working our way in from the outer echo of the shock and trauma. We're going to be focusing on what's going on in your mind and how can you get that to put the brakes on. And we're working on the physical pain. We do one whole module that is so delicious on really focusing on what I'm feeling and letting those numbers go down. It shows up as pain, it shows up as tension, it shows up as anxiety, and you can literally measure as that's being reduced as we're going through that particular module. We talk a lot about mindset and ego. And another thing that's really great is I've created this program and I've made it about as cost effective as I have ever done a program in my life. When I do these programs live and they're 5 hours or more, it's a $9.97 ticket at least, especially because I know you are going to be a different person at the end of those 5 weeks or 5 hours, whichever way you choose to participate in it. And we're doing this for $197. And that is because, I mean, that's like about $50 a call. I so want this to get out there.
Yeah.
And you know that, Virginia. You've heard my
it's so neat. It's so needed out there. And to give your brilliance, your gifts, your lifetime of experience doing this and offer it to people as a tool. Think about this, everyone. This is a tool she's giving you really to deal with all of these issues so that You can be more proactive as your energy shifts and needs a tune-up, so to speak. So you're going to have access to this program, I'm assuming, indefinitely, Jan? Is this a lifetime?
Yeah.
Wow, you guys.
Somebody teased me the other day and said, you can't say lifetime because who's lifetime? And I was like, okay, we'll just call it as long as it's
up and available.
Yeah.
And Jan is yeah. Oh, I think it's I think it's really like a gift too. So you got a free gift, and you got a bonus of getting the experience with Jan at a fraction of the cost of working with her one-on-one or working with her in a live program. So, wow. I hope you all go out and get started healing the grief and the trauma and becoming more resilient. Wow. I want to thank you, Jan, so much for being here with us today and taking the extra time. And I want to thank all of you viewers for taking the extra time. I know this will make a difference in your life. And I want you to go out and help spread the word, and help spread joy, and help be a healer in your own right. Use these skills that Jan is teaching all of us in a powerful, positive way to help heal humanity. That would be my wish for you. That brings tears to my eyes.
Amen.
Jan, thank you again. And all of you, thank you for being here. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next Inspirational Business Women Show. We'll see you real soon. Bye-bye now. Thanks so much for watching today. Do you know someone who would be a great guest for our show? Or would you like to be a guest on the Inspirational Business Women Show? Let's shine the spotlight on your expertise. We'll share your story while offering tips, strategies, and advice to our viewers. Expert interviews are a great way to build your reputation as the go-to expert. Go to shinetips.com/IBWS to apply today. Women are waiting for your message, and I can't wait to interview you.